All right, welcome everyone to this week's call, and I'm really excited to discuss a topic that I believe will be intriguing for everybody, because in conventional medicine, if you have symptoms, it's seen as a negative, but sometimes when we're healing, we have symptoms that indicate a positive thing, that indicate that you're healing, but because they're symptoms, you view them as negative until we can talk through it and maybe show you the answer. So the title of the presentation is Feeling Worse When It's Not Die-Off, Could It Be Healthy? Many people are familiar with die-off or Herxheimer reactions. And if you're not, I'd point you to my YouTube channel where I've made a video on die-off reactions previously in depth and talked about it at length. So please check that video out. But in short, die-off is what people call symptoms that they have when they're going through, say, a liver detox or maybe an antimicrobial strategy to deal with gut dysbiosis. And essentially what it is, or is perceived to be, is an increase in symptoms associated with the increased inflammation related to either liver detoxification or killing microbes that are in your gut. Now, it's possible, today's presentation is talking about the possibility of feeling worse when it's not die-off. So say you're in your plan and your plan doesn't include a liver detox phase, or doesn't include a gut dysbiosis phase, or it does, but you haven't reached those phases yet. Why would you be experiencing symptoms before that comes? And could those symptoms be healthy? So this talk was triggered by an experience with a patient this week, and it's an experience I've had many times, but since it happened this week, it was more top of mind. So we'll switch over to the labs of the patient, and it's been redacted, so you're not going to know who it is, but I think this will be informative for you. So the patient's main complaints are chronic pain, neuropathies, muscle spasms, insomnia, GI issues, and recently headaches, which they've never had before. And so they are in, I believe, day 12 of the plan, or week 3. They're early on, and they're saying that their pain is worse, their neuropathies are worse, and they've started to develop headaches, which they haven't had before. And they want to know why, and is this normal, and what can we do about it, sort of thing. And so in working through the case, the first thing I want to say is there's a difference between quote unquote normal and expected, or normal and common, right? And so it's common to get mugged in New York City. It's not normal to get mugged in New York City, right? It's common to have symptoms when you're going through a liver detoxification phase, but it's not normal to have symptoms, right? So this person's wondering, is my flare and symptoms normal? Well, no, I wouldn't say it's normal. Is it common? Sure. And so understanding their case helps me answer that this is a common occurrence, and it's actually a good sign because it's showing us that this person's immune system is functioning better. And a little background on this person, the neuropathies and the anxiety, the muscle spasms, this person has antibodies to their nervous system. And so there appears to be an autoimmune component, a neurologic autoimmune component to their complaints. And so let's dive in. What you can see here, is lab low white blood cells. Now, lab low white blood cells, this is lab low, this isn't functionally low. I'll point you here to the reference range, or the normal range that the lab reports for every marker. And you can see that this person's white blood cell count is lab low, below the normal range, so lab low, or deficient, or this person is immune suppressed, okay? So that means there's potential for whatever they're exposed to, whether it's flu or COVID or a cut on their arm or salmonella, some sort of food poisoning. The likelihood is that their response to that is going to be suboptimal or muted, right? Because they don't have enough soldiers to respond in a normal way. Another way I communicate this is your white blood cell count is, say, the number of all the soldiers in your military. In all of your armed forces, this is how many you have. So this person was deficient or doesn't have enough soldiers in their military. Therefore, they need to recruit harder or maybe even run a draft. Now, that's the total military. If we go down here and we look at, well, how did the total soldiers break up in the branches, say Marines, Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, ROTC, right? So we have not enough overall, and then they break down in an imbalanced way across the branches. And so in this person, you can see lab low neutrophils. Well, neutrophils should be our first responders. Neutrophils are resident immune cells in the tissues waiting for trauma, waiting for an infection, waiting for a wound. They're the ones that are there to react right away while we're waiting for the adaptive immune cells to expand out and come as reinforcements. You could picture neutrophils, they're part of the innate immune system. I picture the innate immune system as, say, the local police. They're on site, ready to respond. And the adaptive immune system, the guys who come later, they're the SWAT team. They're more specialized. We've got snipers there. We've got bomb squad. We've got, more specialized, more specialists. Okay. So neutrophils are going to hold down the fort until the specialists get there. Well, in this person, they don't have any police. They don't have any local guys, or they're deficient in the amount that they do have. So again, this may allow an infection to progress further before they respond appropriately. So it allows the infection to maybe get a better hold in the tissues. So it may be a bigger fight for this person against the same flu virus that I might contract, because they have a deficient overall immune system and deficient first responders, whereas I would have an optimal immune system and optimal amounts of innate cells. We can see here that his lymphocytes and monocytes are lab high. Well, again, that's an imbalance, and it may be an appropriate imbalance depending on what's going on in the rest of this person's labs. But for what we can see here, this is imbalanced. We have low innate cells, low first responders. We have high SWAT team. So picture it this way. If you're handing out traffic tickets, is it efficient and a good use of our money to have the SWAT team patrolling the streets and handing out traffic tickets? No, right? That's what local police are for. If the SWAT team has to go on ticket detail, they're probably going to be upset and say, come on, man, I'm more highly trained than this. No offense, police, but I don't want to be doing that. But when the police aren't there, SWAT team, deal with it. You have to hand out tickets and be ready for snipers, function as a sniper or a bomb squad. The monocytes are lab high. These guys are part of the innate defenses, just like neutrophils. And they're also potentially indicating a Th1 immune response. What is that? Well, in my book, The Autoimmune Answer, in the introduction, I talk about the various T helper cell type subsets, how they mature into different functions, say Th1, Th2, Th9, 2217 Tregs, T follicular helper cells. There's a bunch of them. Well, T monocytes are associated with the Th1 subset, which are our main antiviral fighters and our main intracellular infection fighters. So if you have COVID, you want your monocytes to function efficiently and appropriately, because they go and they recognize the infected cell, they eat that infected cell, killing your cell, but also killing COVID. That's appropriate at that time. The basophils are lab high in this person. Basophils are a Th2 response. That's a pro-allergy response. That can lead to allergic inflammation ranging from food reactions to pollen reactions to reactions to gut at mucosal barriers, such as gut, lung, sinus, bladder. Typically, a Th1 and a Th2 response oppose each other. So when one is up, the other should be down. When they're both up, that suggests greater immune dysfunction than normal. And then the immature granulocyte cells, the ROTC cells, You can picture this again, like the ROTC. ROTC are the high school kids who are going to go into the military, right? So these are immature. They're not trained. They're not as well trained as police yet. They're definitely not as well trained as SWAT team or Marines or, military. But, they've got maybe slingshots or straws with spitballs, and they think they're tough, right? If these are high, that suggests chronic inflammation. And because of the global immune deficiency, it's kind of like, well, we don't have enough adults, so let's recruit all able-bodied kids. And so that's what they're doing. So overall, this is a suppressed, depressed, deficient immune system that cannot respond optimally to antigens. And antigens could be infections, could be foods, could be environmental toxins, could be trauma, could be whatever puts demand on the immune system. And so we see that. Now, on other testing, this person showed elevated TGF-beta levels. TGF-beta suggests chronic inflammation, oxidative stress or rusting, oxidation, and this being elevated inhibits our ability to fight viral infections. It inhibits our glutathione levels. It promotes inflammation. So that being elevated compounds these findings, and TGF-beta is high when the ROTC guys are high, because that suggests the bone marrow is turning out what are called myeloid-derived suppressor cells, immature white cells, because we don't have enough adults. So we've established that. Now, sorry for all the minutia, but I think it's important for people to understand how this stuff works because they don't get it anywhere else. So anyway, this is what we found on initial testing in this person. The person's now 3 weeks into their plan, and they call me up this week and they say, I'm having more symptoms. My neuropathy's worse, my pain's worse, my sleep is worse, and my headaches, I'm having headaches, and I've never had headaches before. What could this be from? Now, I didn't write it up for you, but the initial phase of this person's plan is to support or to, have a draft or go heavy on recruiting. We're trying to support an increase in total white blood cells. We want to get the military level up to snuff, right? We want to have enough soldiers. We want to have an optimal amount so that when we're faced with things, we can respond appropriately. We also want to balance out this immune phenotype that is all out of whack down here, okay? And so in doing that, the possibility is out there that by improving overall immune numbers and improving immune response and immune balance might flare symptoms. Why? Well, this person has antibodies to neurologic tissue. Is it fair to say that if someone has antibodies to neurologic tissue but is immune suppressed, we would probably expect the immune response and the symptoms to be less than if they have antibodies to tissue and they're immune competent, right? That'd be a fair expectation, correct? And so we entered the plan with immune suppression. Our goal is to improve immune capacity to respond and overall immune numbers. And so if he has symptoms, when we're focusing on doing that, that would be a positive finding for us because it would suggest that we're achieving our goal immunologically, right? If we increase white cells, then we're increasing the immune system's ability to respond. It just so happens that that response is against self-tissue because the person has antibodies, right? So that could flare autoimmune symptoms, which again is perceived as a negative thing. And I'll even admit I don't want it to go on for too long, but the point that we can see it is a good thing because we're achieving our first goal, which is to get the immune system up to snuff. Then the second goal is to balance out the different players of the immune system. So I think where we're at with this person is that we're succeeding in increasing total soldiers, and we're succeeding at that faster than we're succeeding at balancing out the different branches here. So with this imbalance in branches, a Th1 dominance is pro-inflammatory. So while we improve our efficiency of immune response, we're improving this person's efficiency at being pro-inflammatory. So we're allowing the immune system to be better at attacking its targets. And some of those targets are self-targets in this person because they have antibodies to self-tissue. Make sense? So the point here of this video is to show you that symptoms aren't necessarily always a negative. An increase in symptoms aren't necessarily always a negative. We don't want an increase in the robustness of an autoimmune flare to last for long. But if we see it short term, we can say, awesome, we're accomplishing what we want to accomplish immunologically, or at least these findings suggest this. Now, how do we tweak what we're doing to decrease the flare symptoms but continue to improve immune capacity? And to answer that question, at least in this person, what we're doing is we're scaling back some of the things that were potentially contributing to the imbalance being more robust initially, and just focusing on getting the cells up here and maybe even pushing back a little bit in the opposite direction here. So what we did was we pulled some stuff out of the plan for a week and kept some stuff in. We're going to observe for change in symptoms. And if this person reports back and says, my neuropathy pain is less, the headaches are gone, my sleep is better, you know, some level of improvement in the symptomatology, we know we're on the right track. And then as we get back to a level that is acceptable, we'll then reintroduce the things we pulled out and see, okay, how do you handle these things? Do you handle them without symptoms because we got ahead of the curve for you? So I think this video compared or contrasted with the die-off video helps you understand sometimes why you may have worse symptoms when you're not in a liver detox strategy or an antimicrobial strategy. And I'll now open it up for questions relevant to this topic.
That makes total sense. This is fascinating. I love this stuff so much. It reminds me of case studies when I was doing veterinary medicine. It's just like what we had to figure out. So I would ask, like, do you think you could provide us with an update so we can see how these numbers change later?
Yeah, absolutely. And the only reason I don't have one is because I don't have one yet.
Right, exactly.
You know?
Right.
So yeah, once I get them, of course, that'll be one of the things that I want to look at first is, okay, right, how are the numbers doing at this most recent check-in? And if they're how I think they are right now, then that would kind of retroactively reinforce or support as thoroughly as we could our thinking right now.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see that, because just when you think that, you people always think, well, this is bad, this has to be bad.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means you weren't working optimally to begin with. So you're not going to suddenly start that 3 weeks in. So that's fantastic.
Absolutely. And it reminds us to be, you know, to consider all the possibilities, right? Because if as a clinician, you know, it's not uncommon, especially younger clinicians, to come out of school, and obviously you want people to get better, right? And if they say they're worse, it almost offends you, right? Or you take it personally. It's like, well, what the heck? You know, I'm doing everything I learned with this. No one taught me this in school, right? And no one taught me this in school. So it's legit. It's been, you know, hard knocks that teaches you. But what we want to remember as physicians is we're not as all powerful as we might think when you come out of school, right? So you don't take it personally because you're not doing it to them. You did your best in interpreting the data you have and creating a plan for them. And now they have to go implement. And then there's that conversation back and forth now to figure out together what's going on. So, you know, because there's a tendency, if you take it personally, you might avoid that email longer. Or if you don't have the answer for them, you know, it's like, oh, you know, don't answer that email, and maybe they'll just forget, right? Or it'll get better before I'm on the spot. But you know, I would to you know, clinicians or students or whoever watching this, I would encourage you take those situations as learning, right? Because if you push them away and don't answer the email or return the phone call and hope it goes away, A, you didn't learn, B, you failed that person, and C, you might lose that person, right? And D, if it went real bad, you know, maybe you have a liability case or something on your hands. So you always want to communicate, and then how can I learn from this? Because ultimately, if a supplement works or doesn't work, or a lifestyle tweak works or doesn't work, or a drug works or doesn't work, those are all clues. And so you want to ask yourself, what is this response by this person's body telling me? And what did I expect, and what's different about that? And maybe what's changed in the 3 weeks? You know, try and include as many variables as you can.
That's the functional medicine. I mean, and the communication is so much different than conventional conversations with a doctor. You can't even have this kind of conversation with a regular doctor. So,
No.
I think that's part of it. No, I mean, I don't think anybody who's gotten to this point where we're like sitting here with you on this call and going through our plans thought, yep, I'll be fixed up in 12 weeks and I'm good. Nobody thought that. So
I hope people don't think that, but I think, you know, I think that's the goal of myself and the person, but we have to set proper expectations, right?
Right,
you know,
right.
So the goal is, yes, optimal at 12 weeks. The reality is maybe not, right? But if the goal we can all agree on is you better not be the same at 12 weeks, right? So if you're improved at 12 weeks and we can document that objectively with lab changes and then subjectively with your self-reports through progress questionnaires, well, hey, my anxiety is 25% better, my pain's 50% better, my headaches are gone, you know, I've lost this much weight, and look, your labs have changed here, here, and here. Well, great, we've made massive progress from the start, so everyone's happy. And even if you're not optimal yet, it's like, I've changed more in 12 weeks than I have in the last 12 years with 20 different doctors. We're onto something, right? So it's important to be able to document it objectively. At least in my mind, I'm nerdy enough to care about that, but I think it's not nerdy. I think it's how, you know, you see on the news evidence-based medicine, but there's no evidence behind the medicine that those people are practicing. Oftentimes, there's nothing behind it but dogma. The British Medical Journal in 1990 published an article talking about how 70% of conventional medicine is based on dogma. There's no science to support what they do. It's just been, you know, passed on and assumed, right? So if we can run labs pre and post, I can show you, hey, you know who LabCorp is? This isn't dogma. This is based on lab diagnostics, and behind all that, there's research supporting, you know, what I'm doing, at least, maybe not in every office, but that way we can be as confident in the changes we're creating as possible. And as confident as possible to write a book and say, look, we did this, this is what happened, this is what we can say we can do for a person.
Right. Yeah.
So I've got a question. I'm now done with week 12 and I'm going to get my blood work done and the saliva. No poop, I guess.
Don't stop pooping.
Huh?
Don't stop pooping.
Oh, I won't stop pooping.
Okay, good.
But then we see the changes, but then do we go further after that and then do more blood work, say in 3 months, or what happens?
Those results help us answer those questions. So again, another, you know, because I'm sure you've been to offices where there's no objective testing done, and it's kind of like, well, let's just see how you feel, you know, or something like that, right? And the problem is you can be tricked by feeling, because there's a lot of marathon runners that feel good and have a heart attack tomorrow, right? So the objective testing allows, it holds me accountable, holds you accountable, and we can sit down with a third party, which is your under the hood markers, right? And say, here's what's real and up to date. And so to answer your question, Janine, when can I have X food back? Well, your immune findings now suggest that you can tolerate these in the past pro-inflammatory foods again. So let's try reintroducing them in this controlled way. Or, doc, how long do I have to stay on this supplement? Well, Janine, this marker is now optimal. We can drop that off, right? So the testing plus your progress reports, which says, hey, I'm 75% better in sleep and I'm 50% better in GI or whatever. Those things in combination are the most thorough data we can have on you to confidently say, we don't need this anymore, or this is our focus, or hey, you've reached optimal. Now spread your wings and keep implementing what got you here in terms of a lifestyle. And let's catch up in 6 months or 12 months with some lab work just to check in on you. And if something comes up before that, then call me or email me and we'll deal with it at that time.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, I was just curious because
yeah, so
I was curious.
Yeah, the goal is, you're finishing up an intensive portion. The goal is that this is the only one you need. The results will tell us, is that it or not? And if it is, say you're at optimal, well then now it's like, hey, we're family. I'll set a reminder to reach out to you in 6 months and see, do you want to do updated lab work? And if something comes up before then, reach out, sort of thing. And of course, hey, here's a couple of things that I recommend for wellness that we all should be on, right?
Mhm.
But other than that, see you soon.
Well, do you find that some patients after week 12 are flying on their own and they don't need any more supplements?
I would say the majority of them are. So I don't think anyone ever needs no supplements. And I'm not saying that from a sales perspective. I take a lot every day. And it's because, everyone needs a multivitamin, multimineral. Why? Our soils are depleted. Even your organic wild foods are compared to 40 years ago, are a joke in terms of nutrient status. We all need a fish oil. Why? Because if you eat enough wild caught salmon to get the fish oil you need, you're going to be toxic in Fukushima radiation or some heavy metal, right? We all need vitamin D because we're not naked at the equator 24/7. Okay. And 50% of Americans are deficient in magnesium. Like there's stats and a multivitamin, a fish oil, vitamin D are, say, the three that everybody needs. But do you need as much as you've had during the 12 weeks? Hope not. And most people know. There's some people that need another phase and maybe not 12 weeks, but 6 or something like that, right? So again, the labs help drive it. So you realize, hey, there's objective data reinforcing what he's saying to me. He's not telling me I need more just because he has bills to pay this month. Right.
Yeah, I needed more.
Yeah.
Oh, you needed more? You've been through the 12?
I'm halfway through my second 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
I'm messed up. I'm really messed up. So it's a good.
So you came in messed up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was pretty messed up.
But you're massively improved though, right?
Massively,
Like
yes.
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 Janine, I'm sure you've heard the story, but she came in not being able to see, not being able to drive for 3 months.
Oh, this is the one with MS?
Yep.
Oh,
This
okay.
is in the flesh. Here she is.
Okay.
Jennifer. Yeah. So by 3 weeks, right, you were driving again and could see and read?
Yeah, and I hadn't been able to drive. It was almost 7 months that I wasn't driving.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
3.5 weeks. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, she's on a second phase and we can joke about how messed up she was, but she's massively, massively improved as well and was at 3 weeks. But there's, things take time. Different people heal at different rates and there's different factors for everybody. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've actually shared your story with people.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Good to see you in person.
I have to. Thank you. You both are very sweet. Thank you. It's been a journey and I could not have done it without this. I couldn't have done it because nobody else looks at it this way. So, yeah.
And you're getting your scan after the first of the year, right?
Yes, I should be because we'll get new insurance and I'll set up a new MRI hopefully in January to find out where I am. So, yes.
Good memory, Janine. Look at you.
I know.
Sharp as a tack.
I may be the oldest one on the call, but I still have it up here.
That's right. You're the wisest.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
Awesome. What else? Any other questions on this, or let me say on this, and if you have something not on this, then we'll cut this part off.
Oh, I was just gonna say, that's what we really appreciate about you, Dr. Bartemus, is that like I've been to so many natural doctors and even other functional doctors too, but the way that you have kind of, everything is very organized, you know, you're very chop, you cut to the chase and you don't waste time. And then you have like these objective standards and stuff is very different from even probably most natural doctors too, because I'm even going to a functional doctor here that just the contrast, like I would have gone with her and like probably done her program, but she's just so loosey-goosey. She's like, well, you're really messed up. We could do this or we could do that, you know, and I'm just like, what do you want? She's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, wait a minute. Dr. Bartemus is like, here's the deal. This is what you need to know, you know, and let's get you better. And I've always felt like you would not be satisfied if we did not see results. You know what I'm saying? Like you would be less satisfied even than we were.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know, it's because I approach it like I'm not offended by it the way that the young doctor is, but I'm like righteously indignant about it, right? Like, what the heck? What do I need to learn? What I miss there? Like, why? You know, which is how we should be as a whole medical system or healthcare system, because just ignoring it or blaming the patient or saying it's in your head, here's an antidepressant, like does nothing. So I appreciate the kind words, and I'm thrilled that how I practice is seen and perceived that way and coming through that way, because that's how I want to practice.
That's 100%. I totally agree with Janelle. My previous functional medicine doctor was very reactive, not proactive. And
Yeah.
that was the difference too. And I was like, while we got sort of further and she did do some good things for both me and my husband, it was still, like you said, well, what do you want to work on next? What? All of it?
You're the doctor.
Yeah.
So.
Well, cool.
Well, I feel blessed then. This is my first functional doctor, so.
Well, you're ruined forever then if you go somewhere else.
I am. I'm not going anywhere.
What was that, Janelle?
You didn't waste any money and time other places.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.